You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the weekly Keep Canada Weird discussion series. If you're new here in Keep Canada Weird, my good pal, handsome Aaron Airport and I seek out and explore some of the more offbeat Canadian news stories from the past week. In tonight's episode, which we recorded on September 1st, 2022, Aaron and I catch up with the Freedom Convoy adjacent group that has been using a large 100-year-old church in Ottawa as their headquarters. We are nearly left speechless by an exorcism that recently took place at a Saskatchewan Bible camp, and we share two interesting stories relating to current municipal elections. So let's get into it. Handsome Aaron Airport, you've been complaining that it's hot. What is the problem here?
The heat. That is the problem.
You're going to be missing it soon. It's September 1st, and, when the calendar changes from August to September, fall starts getting real, at least in my mind. Are you not worried?
Yeah, fall is real. There's been some fallish moments in the past couple days, but yesterday and today, it's back up to, late July temperatures.
Well, good. Enjoy it while we got it, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm miserable.
Yeah, me too. Miserable in the fall. I'm miserable in the summer.
Shut up for a second. I actually really like the fall.
If it was fall year round, like if I could pick any one season and have it all year be that season, I think I would pick fall. But the problem is, I hate the summer and I hate the winter. So fall, I get a bad vibe because, I know winter's coming. Spring, I get a bad vibe because I know summer's coming. If I could just really stretch out in fall, I'd be a happy man. But
if I were to pick one season that would extend the entire year, it would be the fall. The colors, the temperature is perfect.
The Halloween,
the excitement. And in Canada, Thanksgiving rolls around in the fall. That's so nice.
Well, we got a lot to look forward to. But before we get to the things that we're looking forward to, what's new with you? What have you been up to? I don't think I've talked to you
I talked to you last week.
Okay, I was feeling we skipped a week. That was the week
we
prior.
Did skip a week with this show, but you and I did a little guest appearance on another podcast, which is why we weren't here last week.
Yes, we weren't here last week because we did a guest appearance on Crawl Space they titled their episode Keep Earth Weird, but I think that was wrong because all the stories that they picked were American stories.
From America, yeah. It was Keep America Weird.
It's false advertising, right?
Yeah. So they're looking to kind of do a similar show to ours. A Keep America Weird style show. And so we were on to talk about Keep Canada Weird and what we do and what we say and, tell them to not do it. Don't copy us.
Yeah, but they wouldn't listen. They're doing it.
They're doing it anyway in spite of our, very aggressive recommendations to them.
So we haven't been away from each other for a while, but is anything going on? Did anything interesting happen? Do you need to tell me about anything before I tell you what's
to tell you about anything.
I got something burning a hole.
I don't need to tell you anything. I'm a closed book. You don't know what goes on.
Do you see this? For people who are listening, as opposed to watching, what I hold in my hand, I'm a bit of a pop connoisseur. I'll be the first one to admit I drink way too much. I'm also a sucker for any kind of limited edition, new flavor, special edition, but this isn't any special edition. What I have in my hand here is Coca-Cola, sugar-free, limited edition flavor, and the flavor is called Dream World. Okay? Now, I've been waiting ages to try this, and it's been in my fridge. I've been waiting for the right time to open it and take a sip. And I'm going to do it now. But before I do it, let me tell you why I'm so excited about this. Not just because it's pop that I love, not just because it's sugar-free, and not because it's a limited edition. All things I'm into. Let me read you the description of how Coca-Cola is marketing this limited edition flavor, Dream World. Here's what they say about it. Coca-Cola Dream World makes the most fascinating parts of our imagination real. The limited edition sparkling beverage from Coca-Cola Creations explores the realms of the surreal, the imaginary, and the otherworldly. Experience that familiar Coca-Cola taste, but now with a surprising and unexpected flavor from a dream world. Does that sound like a description of pop?
It sounds like utter nonsense and gibberish.
I'm trying it right now.
So, what does complete nonsense taste like? We're about to find out.
Oh, oh, it tastes like it's foaming up.
Not a
It
dream
tastes like,
world, but a nightmare.
it tastes like Coca-Cola mixed with maybe cotton candy and maybe a little bit of like fruit punch. Like I'm getting Coca-Cola,
Really?
cotton candy, fruit.
So it's just whatever's at the bottom of the barrel in the Coke factory, whatever's kind of, it's the hot dog of sodas.
Oh, it's like it's confusing. If you
Yeah, it's just whatever falls off the factory floor, and then they just dump it into one container. It's
yeah.
like, let's call it Dream
And
World.
even the
And people
logo,
like Jordan will buy it.
even the logo, like the artwork on the bottle is kind of like this trippy thing. It's like there's like a window and the Coca-Cola symbol is kind of like floating through the window, as are these other kind of abstract shapes. Like someone at Coke was really going out on a limb with this. I like it. I'm here for it. I like a new weird flavor.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds so dumb.
Well, let's get into it here. We're not here for
I'm
pop
drinking
reviews.
wine in case you're wondering. You never asked me about my drink.
Yeah, how do you and you drink white wine? That's
Well, I used to predominantly only drink red wine, but then this summer I've been getting into the white. It's very refreshing.
well, I think it
Really
is like a
enjoy it.
summery drink, right? Like you would drink white
Yeah,
wine.
well, white wine is chilled, so
Okay.
there's that aspect of it, whereas red wine is room temperature or whatever.
Okay. Well, good.
Hmm.
I'm glad you got a drink there. Well, let's get into this. We have our drinks.
Thanks.
We're all set up, ready to rock. It is now time to keep Canada weird. And we got a plethora of strange stories here from all
Oh,
sides of the food court, I guess is how we'll put it. We have
where
an
where we usually hang out.
yeah, we have an exorcism in Saskatchewan. We have
Yeah.
some updates about. I kind of call them the Freedom Convoy Church, but really what we're talking about is the church in Ottawa that was taken on by a quote unquote like community oriented group called the United Peoples of Canada. They're in a lot of trouble and there's some strange stuff going on there, not unexpectedly. We'll catch up with them, and then we have two sort of political stories, political in terms of them both involving municipal
A
elections.
politician of some kind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we got some cool stuff. Before we get into these stories, and in a moment we'll negotiate which story we start with. I got two listener voice memos to share. The first one, I'm a little bit worried about this because it's making me
Oh no.
question the impact we have on Canadian tourism. And not an impact in terms of people not coming to Canada, but I hope we're not impacting people who come to Canada from abroad, impacting their decisions on what they're going to do. So,
Okay. I haven't heard any of these
so
folks, so
now I say two voice memos. One's a voice memo. One's an email that I'm going to
one's an
read. But
email.
the
Yeah.
voice memo is Zoe, who came to Canada, uh, eh, and I think she wants to kind of try out some of the things we've talked about. Listen to this.
Hmm. Oh, well, we'll see.
Hi, Jordan. This is Zoe from Germany. My husband and I are currently in Canada traveling with an RV, and it's our first time in Canada, and we've enjoyed it so far. And also, first time visiting Tim Hortons today. And we are doing this because we think we should be visiting Tim Hortons when in Canada. My professor in when I was studying abroad always talked about Tim Hortons, and also you in your podcast frequently mentioned Tim Hortons. So I thought that we should give it a try ourselves. But I'm also a little bit scared since you said that it's quite awful. But um, yeah, we'll just see for ourselves. And also, what happened on the way here to the Tim Hortons is that my husband pulled into the restricted area of a police parking lot. So that reminded me of the Peterborough incident, which made me then laugh, of course. So, yeah, so thank you for your podcast. I really enjoy it and have a good day. Bye bye.
So my problem with that is Zoe teases us. She's like, "We're in
Yeah,
Canada."
we don't get the end result.
Yeah, so what
Like,
did she
where's the
think?
punchline?
Yeah.
What does she think of the coffee?
Yeah, so she starts here.
I know what she thinks of it. She's like, this is garbage.
Well, you'd think she would have sent me a follow-up voice memo. I wonder if she tried the coffee, loved the coffee, and is just like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He hates Canada. He hates, freedom, all these sorts of things.
Which we do.
Zoe, if you're listening, I compel you and your husband to send us another voice memo giving us your thoughts on what it was like in Canada, but more importantly, we're interested in what you thought of Tim Hortons.
Yeah, please. We really want to know your honest, unfiltered opinion of the coffee.
Then I got, we'll call this a piece of, we'll call this feedback. This is someone elaborating on a topic we touched on briefly in a past episode. They know a lot more about it than us. It has to do with, we did a story recently about a cat that returned home after like 9 years, I think it was, because the cat had a tattoo on them. If you know,
Yeah, I
remember
the conversation about the
okay,
the tattoos on the cats.
So here's what they say. Hey, I just listened to the episode of Keep Canada Weird with the reuniting of people with their cat. Both you and Aaron mentioned you hadn't heard of the tattoos on cats. It's actually fairly common. Usually owners get the option when the pet gets neutered or spayed. The vet or the vet tech will take a tattoo gun and put a tattooed number in the ear. And that specific tattooed number is for the pet and that pet only. If you adopt, usually the rescue or the adoption center will already have the tattoo done, or at least they should have recommended it. So I didn't know that. I don't think I've ever noticed like a number tattooed on a cat. I think I'd be scared of that cat.
Yeah, I would think that would be very dehumanizing to have a number kind of tattooed on you.
Unless it's really small.
Yeah,
that's more appropriate.
I don't know. I mean, if it's, it is what it is. It's to help the cats when they're lost. So sure,
it's important.
Yeah, I support it.
Well, we're caught up with feedback, listener voice memos. Let's get to it. Aaron, I've explained the stories. Where do we start this? Do you want to get political? Do you want to get spiritual?
Are we ever going to talk about the pizza at Tim Hortons on this show?
Holy crap. How did I forget about that?
I was surprised it wasn't in the list of stories this week.
We just got to get into it right now then. I've even called out to listeners in Ontario specifically, hoping that they would be willing to go to Tim Hortons and buy one for us. But I don't think this needs much of a setup. Tim Hortons is at it again. Do you want to tell us? Do you know what's going on? Can you explain?
Well, I heard that they're testing in certain stores. I don't know exactly where.
It's only in Ontario.
It's only in Ontario. Mm-hmm. And it's a new product line from Tim Hortons. This is what they're good at, is pumping out the new products, and it's pizza.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I saw on social media were directly reminiscing about McDonald's pizza.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's why Tim Hortons is doing it. It's because like the nostalgia that's connected to McDonald's
There's
pizza.
A lot of positive memories about the McDonald's pizza. Everybody remembers it very fondly.
Mm-hmm. So I think Tim's is just kind of jumping on that. But yeah, they are doing a kind of a test run of I think they have 2 or 3 different flavors that are on the go across Ontario. Not all restaurants in Ontario, but in a bunch of them, and only in Ontario. I've watched a few reviews on YouTube and read a couple articles about them, and honestly, I've seen some kind of positive reviews. People are saying, given what it is, it's not that bad, but we'll see. If it ever makes its way to Nova Scotia, I'd love to try it. Again, I put a post on Twitter and Facebook saying, anyone in Ontario, like, I'll pay for you to have a pizza and get you coffees and stuff if you'll just try one and tell me about it. Nobody took me up on it, or the people who did say I would do it, they weren't able to find a Tim Hortons in their area that had it.
Yeah.
Then our buddy Randy Stonewall, who's been on the show multiple times, he was in Ontario, and I asked him to go looking for it, and he said no.
No dice.
Simply, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm too busy.
I've got bigger fish to fry than to go and play some game with Tim Hortons with you.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's fair. I respect that.
Yeah, but, if it comes to Nova Scotia, we're both going to try it, and we're going to talk about it a bunch.
Oh, we're going to have another video of us each trying it.
Yeah, we did the Tim Beebs.
The Tim Beebs
I'd
video,
happily do pizza.
No, God, I eat pizza almost every day anyway, so I wouldn't be going out of my way.
Exactly. So what are we going to get into here? Again, we can get spiritual, We can get political. We can get, I guess, activism-y. I guess is how I would define that. What do you think we should
I
start
say
with?
we either start with the spiritual or the church, like the activists or the
Yeah.
freedom convoy type characters in the church.
I think people are calling them the freedom adjacent church, although they
Yeah.
seem to deny that. Yeah, let's start with that because it's an update, and we kind of did a bit of updates with that feedback message and whatnot. When we talked about the church in Ottawa that is being occupied by the United People of Canada, first a correction. When we talked last time, we were under the impression that they bought the church because
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
they didn't buy the church. They've been renting it. And that's kind of where the trouble begins. They're about $10,000 behind in their rent, according to the news reports. As a result, the owner of the building is trying to evict them, and they're not taking it well. I'm going to play you just a short clip that'll kind of get you caught up on what's going on. And spoiler alert, it's like it immediately got ridiculous. So here we go.
Let's take you to Ottawa now, where a small group linked to the self-styled Freedom Convoy is vowing to stay at a local church where they have taken up residence. A midnight deadline to leave the premises passed yesterday, leaving many neighborhood residents frustrated and wondering if the group will be forcibly removed. Hillary, where do things stand now?
Well, Hannah, at this point, the group says that they have no intention of leaving. Meanwhile, neighbors in that area, an area of Ottawa called Lowertown, want this group to leave. And the landlord, the person who owns that former church, also wants this group that's been calling itself the United People of Canada, want the group to leave as well. Now, for their part, the Ottawa Police Service has come out and said that they're going to have an enhanced police presence at the site because they say they've received a number of calls from both the group that is currently renting this space and the neighbors in the area as well. The police say that they're going to try and remain neutral, try and keep the peace here, but they will have enhanced presence there because of a number of calls they've received both this week and last week. Here's a little bit of what we heard from one of the members of the United People of Canada saying that they have no intention to leave that site.
So you're going nowhere. You're not leaving the premises.
We are not leaving the premises. We're lawfully here, and we're going to be staying here.
Here's a little bit of what we've heard from area residents as well.
I'd like to see is that they recognize that the owners want them gone, that the owners do want a legitimate business in the facility, and that the community also wants a legitimate business in the facility, and that they leave peacefully. Are they going to do that? No.
I'm concerned that they're going to get more people in camping out and squatting there to help support the building, right? And that it will become sort of like their new hold the line spot.
Last week, there was a notice posted to the outside of that church saying that the landlord had terminated the lease. The landlord saying that the group owed more than $10,000 in rent, also making claims that they had broken some heritage rules by making changes to that building without receiving the proper going through the proper process in order to do that. So at this point, Hannah, tensions remain high. You have two different sets of people, the group saying they're not going anywhere, and area residents very much wanting that group to leave the church.
It's heating up.
Yeah, it's heating up, yeah.
In reading about what's going on and getting caught up on the church and the whole debacle there was actually just last night a video going around where they didn't give the identity of the person, but I'm assuming it's a community member from someone in the area. But regardless, someone walked into the church and just kind of sat down in the middle of the church. And one of the main organizers of the United People of Canada group approaches the guy, and he has his camera running on his phone, of course. And he's like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And the guy's like, "I'm just staying here. I'm not leaving." And they're like, "Well, you have to leave. We're going to get the cops. We're going to escort you out if you don't leave." And the guy's like, "You can't kick me out. They want you out of here. I got as much rights to be here as you do." The people from the church eventually call the police, who come and end up arresting this man who was there straight up saying like, you guys aren't leaving, so why should I leave? But
Mhm.
it's getting ugly.
Yeah, it is.
And it's getting ridiculous. If you only hear that article, you don't realize that they did this like kind of press release or press conference where they stood out front of the building with all of the members of the United Peoples of Canada holding water guns.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
they've
saw
been
the clip of them holding the water guns.
yeah, and they've been spraying people who've been bothering them.
Are the just cats bothering them? Is that
No, I
is
think there
that
was like people kind of like protesting them and yelling stuff at them, so they
but like a
sprayed them.
super soaker is not going to deter anybody
Would deter
unless
some.
it's an 8-year-old and
We've been in through this in the past. Is it
or
assault?
unless it's the aliens from the movie
Yeah,
Signs.
that's right. But remember our whole conversation about is it assault? When you dump water on someone's head and all these sorts of things. Is it assault if you?
Well, especially when it's coming from a gun,
Yeah, is it a loaded water gun?
a loaded water gun. Yeah,
But where does this end with the church?
it ends with them getting thrown out. How else can it end?
I just think it's. I don't expect it's going to get ugly, but I think the problem is this group. It seems like a bit of their whole ideology is a little like it's kind of has this like legal undertones and stuff. I imagine they would be nightmares to evict from a large church.
No, it's not going to go smooth.
No.
But
Well, it's
yeah,
already not going smooth. It's making national news. And
no. But I mean, now that we know that they're renting and they don't own the place, like we thought originally that they owned it and they were like, we're going to turn this into a community center that's going to be kind of, for our cause or whatever the case is. And now it's like, well, you're renting and you haven't been paying your rent, and it's a historical building, and you've been making changes to it that you haven't gotten
yeah, you
approved.
can't do that.
You have multiple strikes against you. Like someone else owns that building and is going to
Yeah,
evict you.
it knowing that they're renting completely changes my view of the whole story because again, like thinking that they own this multi-million dollar building, my questions more so were like, who is funding this? Where are they getting this money?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
now it
yeah.
appears,
Apparently nobody is
yeah,
because
they're just all kind of
they're
squatting.
not even paying
Yeah.
rent.
So yeah, that changes everything for me. I just hope. I feel bad for people in that area to have to deal with something like that.
It's just a giant nuisance. Like, I mean, I don't know. I still can't get over the water guns and the capes. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah, it's because again, the whole idea initially when we talked about it,
Like, didn't the guy have a scepter
yeah,
or
he had
something with a
like a
tinfoil
tinfoil
or
scepter in like a
what's
fake crown and
bizarre?
stuff. But when,
People really are losing it out
yeah,
there.
they certainly are. But when we talked before, we thought they had all this money, and they came across as really like organized.
Organized and it's like, oh wow, the Freedom Convoy is like setting up, almost like
Yeah,
embassies
and
now
that's the
and are really organizing. But it's like, wait a second, these are just squatters in with capes and water
Yeah, and they just
guns.
kind of trolled everybody for a couple cycles of the news when they were interviewed the first few times. But now it's like, no, they're completely wild. So,
Oh yeah, no, it's as wild as it gets. They're feral.
um, well, I guess that's the update for the church, but for the embassy, I've been calling it like the Freedom Convoy Church, but
But I'm calling it just a church now.
yeah,
It's
it's
not an embassy. It's not anything but a church that some interesting folks are
that's a
squatting
good
in.
way to put it. But I don't think this is the last that we're going to hear about them on this show. I'm sure there's more around the corner. These people aren't just going to tomorrow
Oh, there'll
evacuate
be
the building.
updates. There'll be updates to this story.
Um, well, let's get into the next thing. Let's get spiritual. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm ready for my soul to be cleansed.
Oh,
I actually have some demons in me, so let's
or
let's
have
get
you
into
been
the
having
story.
seizures? I guess that's the big
Well,
question.
isn't it the same thing?
In Saskatchewan, depending on which Bible camp you go to, a specific Bible camp, it seems to be the same thing. Now, first of all, my thoughts on let's because this is going to be a story about exorcism and exorcists and all that sort of thing. Whenever I hear a story like this, I immediately think of the movie The Exorcist. I'm assuming you've seen it.
Yes, I've
Do you
seen
love
it.
it as much as I do?
As much as you do, probably not. I enjoy it, but it's not something that I'd say I
Okay.
love.
I love it, but I see it as a work of fiction, and the idea of an actual exorcism taking place, I don't agree with, especially when it's like a spontaneous thing at a children's summer camp. If a kid is having what may be a medical emergency, or maybe they're possessed by the devil or some kind of demon, I wouldn't jump into like, let's give him an exorcism and then see what happens.
No, I would have taken a much different
But
approach.
everybody approaches things in different ways, and I guess that's what this story's about. So let's hear what happened here.
A summer camp is under investigation after an alleged exorcism took place. In the middle of July, a mother CTV News spoke to says she received a call from her son in distress after he saw a kid collapse with blood coming from his face. The mom, rushing out in the middle of the night to pick up her son, spoke with staff, which she believes the kid was suffering from a seizure. Tyler Barrow has more, and a warning, this story does contain graphic details.
An RCMP investigation is underway after a boy allegedly suffered seizure-like symptoms during an exorcism ritual at Redberry Bible Camp. Heather Rachinsky tells CTV News she first learned of the alleged incident after she received a hysterical call from her son in mid-July.
He was crying and screaming and swearing and begging me to come pick him up immediately.
Rachinsky's asked to not be shown on camera to help protect her son's identity. Rachinsky says her son described an apparent exorcism at the camp located roughly 80 kilometers northwest of Saskatoon, where a boy collapsed with blood coming from his face. Rachinsky says she immediately asked to speak to an adult and was handed over to the camp's director.
He said, we've had satanic activity here in the past, and apparently we do again. And I was just like dumbfounded.
Rachinsky drove to the camp, arriving around 1:30 a.m. on July 14th. She says she was told a staff member had exorcised demons from a boy who collapsed, growling and contorting on the floor.
My partner was with me and he said, so you mean the kid had a seizure? And they said, nope, we saved him.
She says she was told there was no medical follow-up on the boy. Rachinsky left immediately with her son. She says 5 others ended up leaving as a result of the incident, but says the boy who the exorcism was performed on remained at the camp. CTV News has not heard back from the camp following multiple requests for comment. The staff member who allegedly performed the ritual, Carlos Dirksen, who CTV News also made a request to speak with but never heard back from, appears to address the incident in a YouTube video.
Boof! He just starts shaking. He's shaking. His eyes are rolling back in his head. His nose starts bleeding.
Dirksen later going on to say he was let go from the camp following the incident. The Saskatchewan Camps Association says it was saddened to learn of the alleged events. We are reminded of the importance of due diligence when it comes to providing safe camp environments and who is entrusted to provide that care. Redberry Bible Camp's accreditation is currently under review as a result of these events. As for Rachinsky, she says her son is traumatized by the situation and doesn't believe he'll ever go back to another camp.
Holy moly. That story gets right into it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Can you believe that this happens today at a Bible camp in Canada?
In Canada, yeah, I don't know. I do believe it because, man, they're still out there.
Who is out there? Just the demons or the wild people?
Yeah. Depending on what you consider demons, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. You think society is going forward sometimes, but then you realize, oh God, we're not. Not all of us. Some of us are trying to.
I say this a lot, but it's like I've been brought up by X-Files, but specifically Fox Mulder, to let me know that the government knows about aliens and they're not telling us because society can't handle it. As a teenager, I often kind of doubted that. I'm like, no, the government. Why would the government keep it from us? We could handle it. After seeing, as an adult looking at the world through this lens, it's like, no, of course not. Like, humans shouldn't. I don't know if we should know anything at this point.
There's still such a big enough percentage of us out there that are incapable of processing anything like, life outside of this planet. I mean,
seizures,
just regular medical conditions where an ambulance, what 911 is,
listen to this. I don't know if you stumbled upon this, but one of the kids at the camp spoke to CBC and explained.
Yeah, I saw that.
He explains what actually went down. He was in the room during the exorcism, and yeah, it is as crazy as it sounds. Check this out.
He got him to stand up after asking him a couple of questions because the boy said he was seeing faces. And after he did that, he put one hand on his shoulder and one hand on his chest and started speaking in tongues. He also had a jar of water that he would he would dap a little bit on his fingers, and then he put a cross on the kid's forehead. And then he started speaking in tongues, and then he would start saying things like, "Filthy spirit, leave this vessel, and in the name of Jesus, get out of this boy." And all well, he would kind of switch back and forth from speaking in tongues to commanding the demons to leave. And it was basically a back and forth between that, and sometimes he would ask the kid questions like, "Do you know who I am?" or "Can you say Jesus is Lord?" And that was basically all he was doing during it. Right before it started, the kid who was getting the exorcism was in a different cabin. So right before it started to get really, really intense, our Carlos told our other cabin leader to go get the cabin leader for the boy. And when he came, he brought one of the cabin leaders and the camp director. And at some point, the camp director said we should all leave. And I think 2 kids stayed a little bit later, but came with us in a short amount of time.
So hearing it said like that paints a pretty bizarre picture. When people start speaking in tongues and putting water on kids' foreheads in the middle of the night in a cabin in the woods, like weird stuff's going down.
Oh, there's no words to really describe this situation. Like when you see you see this kid, who was attending the camp, recalling the incident, and you can tell that his perspective of it is just like, these are the adults that are supposed to be watching over us while we're at the camp, and they're doing this stuff. Like they're doing exorcisms on someone who's taking a seizure. Like, what? This doesn't make any sense to this kid, So why is it so upside down?
How is it allowed? Yeah, and I guess you should. Well, here's another topic, I guess, within this is, I was about to say, like, how does this happen? And maybe it all seems to kind of focus on that one guy, the leader, Carlos, who has kind of a complicated background, and he seems to be the one who's taking the fall because he has now lost his job at this Bible camp. And it seemed that he was the one who jumped into, something's going on with this person who may be taking a seizure, let's do an exorcism, and he took the lead on it and performed the exorcism. But it isn't just him.
No, it's not. It's the owner.
Here's a short interview with the owner, he just kind of doubles down on it all, and it now makes me question, like, this Carlos guy lost his job, but the owner seems to be kind of,
the camp needs to be shut down. That's the only way to handle this.
Here's what the owner has to say.
He was praying that Jesus would free this boy, or help this boy, because we are of faith and we're Bible camp, and we believe in the power of Jesus, and we believe in that there's evil in the world, and it can affect people in severe ways sometimes. And so this cabin leader has experience with the powers of darkness. And in fact, he was involved in dark things for quite a while, and then has since changed his life and has been a strong cabin leader for us. So he was probably the best person to be in the room at that point, and it was not really something that once it began that could be stopped.
So hearing that makes me less kind of upset with Carlos. This owner is the guy that I'm pointing the finger at. He's like, this camp leader had experiences with the power of darkness, and he was the best person to be in the room. So it just makes me like this. I would bet my life this isn't the only insane thing that happened at that summer camp.
Oh no! If the cabin walls could talk at that place, I'm sure the real demons would come out.
Yeah,
then.
let's make this a call out though for anyone who's ever attended this Bible camp. I would love to hear from you because I have a feeling every person who went there that's of sound mind will have a story that they come home with about something interesting that happened.
Yeah, and again, like there's nothing. We're not against believing in religion or the Bible or whatever. Whatever you do, right? But
I think this is on a different level, though.
This is on a different level. This is gone beyond insanity. This is just chaos.
It is chaos. I would love to know, like, the boy who had the exorcism performed on him. As far as I could tell, his identity hasn't been revealed. His parents haven't spoke to any news outlets or anything like that. I would love to know more about, what he has to say and what his family has to say, but I don't know. It's a strange story. The police have said there will not be charges laid, or they don't expect charges to be laid, but they are investigating.
Why? Why?
Like, well, I was thinking about that. What would the charges be? I guess like kind of like a negligence
like
kind of thing.
well, I'm sure there's a list that you could draw a mile long of charges you could pin on this thing.
But
just complete incompetence. Like, I don't know, like fines. There's got to be fines of some kind. Like, there's got to be something they can do. Like, and not just be like, we're looking into it. But, the executive director is also a complete nutcase too. So we're just going to let this one slide.
But what if, like, could you make a case to say that this Carlos guy didn't believe he was doing the right thing at that time?
I don't know. Where do we draw the line?
But I just think if you were to have him...
I'm sure everybody knows that. I don't care how religious you are. Everybody should know to call an ambulance.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I agree. Like a reasonable...
There's no excuse.
Yeah, like an average person, reasonable...
And you just argue it with yourself. Well, Jesus made ambulances. Yeah, Jesus gave us the power to heal ourselves through medical science. So let's call an ambulance.
Now that if there were charges, it would make for an interesting court case. And I say that a lot when we're talking about these stories, because a lot of these would make for amazing court cases.
Oh my God.
Imagine
this one
moment when Carlos takes the stand and, describes his history and the experience he has with exorcisms and why at that moment this was the right thing to do. That would be nice.
And is it in front of a jury or not?
Yeah.
Maybe you get enough religious people.
Well, I think it's beyond religious people. I think you'd have a hard time finding, go in any church, you're probably not going to find a group of people that'll support what happened there.
No, I don't think so. But here we are anyway. This stuff happens.
Well, let's lighten this up. The only topic that is that could lighten up a discussion about exorcism in children is probably politics, right?
Yeah.
I don't closely follow politics, but I do enjoy a nice municipal election. When everyone has the signs on their lawn and you're getting a new mayor and these sorts of things, that can get interesting, especially in small town Canada when everybody knows the person kind of connected to the race. I don't know if Nova Scotia is having a municipal election anytime soon, but I will say that I know for sure that Manitoba and Ontario have municipal elections coming up in late October for each province. And the reason I know that is because in Manitoba as well as in Ontario, there are two really kind of interesting races and interesting kind of moments going on. Do you want to go kind of central Canada and Ontario, or should we start out west in Manitoba?
Let's start out in Manitoba.
Okay. I like this story. Actually, I really enjoy both of these stories. The one in Manitoba, would this be an irony or coincidence? but somebody is running for mayor in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and his campaign largely rests on encouraging active transportation like biking, adding bike lanes. He promises significant investment in roads and bike lanes, a new system where bike owners will register their bikes as a way to counter bike theft. His name is Rick Schoen. Something quite interesting happened to him just recently after a major press appearance. So bike theft is everywhere in Winnipeg these days. You only got to ask mayoral candidate Rick Schoen. Minutes after leaving a campaign announcement on Wednesday, coincidentally, an announcement focused on his platform to heavily invest in active transportation and to introduce anti-bike theft measures, Schoen had his orange Rawson bicycle clipped from a rack on his truck, which he had parked outside his West End business. I'm going to say it was a dumb thing on my part, but in reality, I shouldn't have had my bike stolen, Schoen said. And the timing was just odd. In the few minutes he was inside, a pair of people riding by on bicycles stopped, snapped the lock, and made off with his bicycle. In a social media post, fellow mayoral candidate Rana Bakari, who recently had the catalytic converter stolen from her campaign vehicle, gave her condolences. I hope you find your bike faster than I've been able to find a catalytic converter. I'll definitely keep my eyes peeled for it, Bakari wrote, referring to an automotive part prized by thieves for the precious metals it contains inside. Schoen said he hadn't had a personal bike stolen since 1995. Normally, I'm really good with anti-theft measures. I understand the benefit of quality locks. I guess I was just rushing on Wednesday. So I feel bad for this guy, but I can't help but just kind of laugh in the middle of all this.
What's happening in this town?
Yeah, and
why is crime so rampant?
Crime is wild there, and is crime wild, or are they targeting the mayoral candidates? The bike.
I think it's both. I think
it's systemic.
I think it's chicken before the egg kind of scenario.
Well, whichever mayoral candidate is running on a campaign of just like an anti-crime, they're going to have a pretty good way to get in there, I would expect. Or a pretty good case. You only got to look at, Rana Bakari, like her campaign vehicle is on the side of the road because someone stole it. The other guy, Rick Schoen, had his bike stolen. I'm the only one who's going to be able to stop this. I'm going to, there's defund the police. What's the opposite movement of that? Increase funding for police.
Oh, yeah. Fund
more fund the police.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just an interesting moment in a mayoral race.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it intentional though? Like,
what do you mean? Like, do you think this is a press move, like a publicity stunt?
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, it is kind of ironic, or it is kind of convenient that a part of his campaign is to introduce legislation, I guess, or regulations or a bylaw that would prevent bicycle thefts using his bicycle registration thing. Like he wants people to register their bikes as a way to, with serial numbers and all this stuff. Yeah, that could be interesting, but that he could have his own interest in having his bike stolen, but I don't know. I think there could be a better way to demonstrate his cause. Like, just have a burglar steal everybody's bikes around town, and then all of a sudden people want to vote because they're mad about bikes being stolen. They would be more sympathetic in themselves or more upset when their bike's stolen than they would be sympathetic for this guy who's running for mayor that had his bike stolen.
Yeah, I think the mayor did it.
Yeah. Case closed.
Yeah.
Let's get to Ontario, where there's a little bit of a darker twist on this because it gets into kind of just family dynamics. You don't have a brother, do you?
No.
Okay. You do have an older sibling.
I have two older sisters, if you must.
I don't need to know, but rather than talking personally about them, just about your relationships together, like you communicate with each other regularly, you love them.
We love each other. We communicate enough.
Okay. You've talked to them within the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a situation going on in Ontario. A mayoral race is interesting where there are only two people running for mayor. They're brothers, but I don't know what the word for it is. They haven't talked in 20 years. I can only assume they don't have a great relationship. They're running against each other. Needless to say, when people talk about the mayoral race in this town, they generally don't talk about the important issues like housing and all the other, social issues that need attention there. They get kind of caught up in this family drama. I'm going to play a little clip that explains some of it.
In Port Colborne, there are only two candidates running for mayor in the municipal election, but both are from the same family. As Manisa Denabalan tells us, for the incumbent, Bill Steele, his only opponent is his brother.
Port Colborne's Mayor Bill Steele, who was also a former city councillor for 17 years, is running for a second term this coming election. His only other opponent, his older brother Charles Steele, who worked at Canada Post for 12 years.
I believe in democracy. If I hadn't been running, the mayor would have been acclaimed.
Charles Steele, who hasn't spoken to his brother for 30 years, wants to see change.
He doesn't seem to be doing much for the city other than promoting cruise ships. He tends to take care of the rich.
When we asked Bill Steele about his opponent,
as I've done for my 21 years, I don't really discuss my opponents. I get Bill Steele elected.
Most of the residents we spoke to were a bit concerned about two brothers going against each other in an election, but all say what's important is getting the issues fixed.
I have a feeling, it may not be on the surface, but I have a feeling that's a nasty, nasty race.
Oh, yeah.
I like...
Why haven't they talked?
Yeah.
They don't get into that.
Not only have they not talked, I said 20 years. Not only have they not talked in 30 years,
yeah.
They're also not even talking about each other to others. Like when they ask the one guy, the incumbent mayor, and he's like, just like every other election over the last 21 years, I don't talk about my, people running against me. I'm here to get Bill Steele for mayor. Yeah, that's like whatever that is. That's nasty.
What happened? That they won't even talk to each other and they're running against each other
for mayor of their small town. Yeah. Ooh, that's one way to show your brother that you've hated for 30 years. I can only assume they hate each other. Why else would they not talk in 30 years? And it's not even it's not like they haven't talked often for 30 years. Like they specifically have said they have not talked. That's like something big happened.
And he didn't even call him to say, I'm running for mayor.
Yeah.
I'm coming for you.
Yeah. But it's clearly that's what he's doing, right? This is in the show Curb Your Enthusiasm, I've learned about this idea of I think they call it a spite a spite business.
The spite, yeah.
Spite he was mad at a coffee shop. Larry David, the main character in Curb, he was mad at a coffee shop, so he opened his own coffee shop next door just out of spite. This is kind of like a spite race for mayor.
Yeah, 30 years later,
Unless politics is in their blood, maybe their dad was mayor and his dad was mayor, and then it's not so crazy because of course the two boys, they got it in their blood and they're going to try to be mayor. But if this is just two guys that just chose to run for mayor after not talking for 30 years.
Well, I mean, it sounds like the other guy has been at it for a while.
He's been mayor
this guy's like, all right.
Yeah, one brother's been mayor for 21 years.
So now, finally, what is the straw that broke the camel's back here with this estranged brother where he's like, all right, I've had enough.
Yeah.
I'm running against him.
It seemed like, at least according to the interviews we heard there, it seemed like it was reasonable concerns. It was kind of like, if you're on...
Oh, no, this goes back to...
Oh, I know.
Kids.
This has nothing to do with...
This is over, someone stole the other's chocolate milk or something, that's
you don't think this is about the cruise ships and the money and
no, that's just the veil they're putting over this sibling rivalry that goes back since they were 5.
People often will criticize journalists, like journalism's dead. So if there is any real journalists left, they need to get to the bottom of this story because I think that's fascinating. It could be a great movie. It's kind of like I could picture.
Well, there's got to be other family members that know the real story.
Well, someone needs to start knocking on some doors, get to the bottom of what's happening, go through old court documents. I have a feeling maybe they fought it out in court once upon a time. Usually, I can't imagine two brothers end up not speaking for 30 years without there being kind of a court case?
It could either be about money, like maybe one borrowed money off the other at some point in time, never paid it back,
I've heard
etc.
of
Or it could be over a woman.
It could be, but I've heard
maybe this is a story about a broken heart.
Ooh, like every good story and song.
Yeah. And then that usually ends in murder.
Oh God, this is getting deep. This is getting dark. But I hear a lot of issues when with inheritance and all that, like estates and all this stuff. Like, it could be one of those things. But no, I'm thinking, it's probably about a woman.
Oh, I think
well,
so.
about a broken heart. I don't know if it's a woman. I don't know these fellas, and I don't know what they're into, but it's probably about a broken heart. Well, I guess we should start. We should start wrapping this up. I think we're going to have some follow-ups coming out of this episode because there are a lot of balls up in the air after this story. So I'll be surprised if something more doesn't come out of this exorcism in Saskatchewan. A story like that isn't just going to go to rest. The people who are occupying the church in Ottawa, the embassy as they call it, something's got to give. And two brothers duking it out to be mayor. I don't know, maybe when it gets down to the wire and that final push, things will really get crazy.
No, I think so.
Anything you want to say before we go? Anything you're looking forward to? Anything you want to tease that you have coming up in terms of secret projects?
I have no secrets, no, but and secrets are secrets. So if it's secret, I'm not going to say anything.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So, but I will say, if in case of emergency, call 911.
Before we wrap this up, one thing we've talked about in the past is this idea that, we both have issues with Tim Hortons. We both have beef with Tim Hortons. And we often say, if anyone out there listening has a Tim Hortons complaint, if they work there and they have insider secrets, we want to hear about it. I've actually have a Tim Hortons complaint that hit pretty close to home. My 9-year-old son has beef with Tim Hortons, and I offered him a venue to share it. You want to listen in on this, Aaron?
All right, let's hear it.
So
tell us what's going on.
Every day, once we drop my little brother off at daycare, we usually go to Tim Hortons to get a coffee for him and an ice water.
And not a bottle of water. We'll get an ice water so it's in a coffee cup, and we pretend that we're both having coffee.
Yeah, that's always good.
Okay.
And
we've been doing this for years, and it's always cost us.
Free.
They would give him a free cup with water from the tap in it. However,
a few days ago, they started charging us 10 cents.
and here's the thing. This may go over your head a bit, bud, but when companies and businesses, they try to charge you more, they do it in a way where they try to act like they're helping. So what Tim Hortons is doing is, as a way to reduce garbage and waste, and to encourage people not to use double cups, but instead use those little sleeves. If you want a double cup, they'll charge you 10 cents.
A double cup?
Yeah, like a double cup, like when the coffee's hot. Some people want 2 cups.
They'll put an extra cup on it.
Because they're trying to make the cups feel like the cups that just come naturally from McDonald's. But so what Tim Hortons is doing is, when we ask for a coffee for me and an ice water for you, they're like, we're not just giving these people cups. This will kill it. We'll consider it a double cup. And so they charge you 10 cents.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say we'll never go back, but
this is the thing that I find hypocritical of the two of you. You really spend a lot of time kind of ripping on Tim Hortons and giving them a hard time on the internet, of all places. You're there multiple times a day.
You're right.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't be so hard on them.
Well, maybe we should.
No, you should, but you should stop going.
Yeah. Or we'll just continue to go. We'll pay the 10 cents using one of my sayings to that will help him get through life is, we'll just give the baby the bottle. All right.
I hate that saying.
If they want their 10
that's giving up. That's giving up. You got to fight the fight.
But yeah, that's that may have been a lighthearted way to tell you, but yeah, Tim Hortons is charging for double cups now.
Yeah,
all
well,
under the guise of encouraging people to use their little sleeves. Come on.
It's nonsense, like every other thing that they do.
Just like the pizza.
When will the beast be slayed?
Well, we're doing our part, right?
Yeah, we're trying to. Well, you're not, but I am.
I pay them a considerable amount of money for coffee.
I'd say a solid 25% of your salary goes to Tim Hortons.
Well, I'm gonna have to think about that tonight. I got a lot of soul searching to do, I guess.
I think you do.
Let's wrap it up, Aaron. Until next time.
Until next time, Jordan.
Don't jump into exorcism as the first option in healthcare.
Oh, 911, the power of podcast compels you.
I want to thank you for joining Aaron and I in our attempt to keep Canada weird, but let us also call out to you for support in our mission. If something unusual happens in your town, let us know. And the best way to do it is by sending a voice memo to us at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. We hope to hear from you there. Now, before we wrap up the episode, I want to give some thanks. First, a big thanks to Aaron for sharing another evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. A big shout out to the internet's favorite cult leader, Unicole, who supplies the intro and outro voiceovers for this series. And lastly, I have a massive thanks, and the most important thanks, to every one of you who listen to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. But with that said, keeping this show alive is and has always been an uphill battle. So if you want to help take a bit of weight off the show's back, make sure you listen on the premium feed. And not only does the premium feed fund the creation of the show, it'll give you more of each topic than you'll find here on the free feed, as I'm adding exclusive content regularly and maintain a full catalog of back episodes only on the premium feed. So for about the price of a cup of coffee, give the show and yourself a pat on the back at patreon.com/nighttimepodcast. And let me thank the newest subscribers, Tara and Queen Cheryl. Thank you for going premium. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show but can't do it with a premium feed subscription, you can give us a big hand by simply sharing this episode on social media and letting any like-minded friends know what we're doing here. And if you want to give story ideas or give feedback on the show, or again, contribute a voice memo, you can do all that and more at nighttimepodcast.com. Aaron and I hope to hear from you. But until then, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let us know if you say anything weird.
The Nighttime Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Jordan Bonaparte. Copyright Jordan Bonaparte.